Walk into any major shopping district in Europe, and you'll likely see a CA store. The brand operates over 1,300 locations across 18 countries, from Germany to Brazil to China. It employs over 30,000 people and generates billions in annual revenue. But ask anyone who owns CA and you'll be met with silence. The Brenninkmeijer family has controlled the company for 180 years, while maintaining near total anonymity. They don't do interviews. They don't appear on rich lists. They don't attend industry conferences or seek publicity. Most people have never heard of them. Yet they control one of the largest fashion retail empires on earth, with an estimated combined family wealth exceeding $30 billion. This is the story of how the Brenninkmeiers built CAA, stayed hidden for nearly 2 centuries, and created a family dynasty based on secrecy, discipline, and an ironclad rule. The business always comes first. The story begins in 1841 in the small Dutch town of Sneek, in the northern province of Friesland. 2 brothers, Clemens and August Brenninkmeijer, opened a small textile shop, selling linen, fabric, and basic clothing. Sneek was not a wealthy town. It was a market hub for farmers and tradespeople, a place where money was tight and customers were practical. Clemens and August were the sons of a Catholic merchant family with deep roots in the region. They were devout, disciplined, and deeply suspicious of ostentation. The family's Catholicism was important. In a predominantly Protestant Netherlands, Catholics were often outsiders, excluded from elite circles, which made them self-reliant and tightly knit. The brothers' business model was simple: sell quality clothing at fair prices, treat customers with respect, and reinvest profits into expansion. They traveled through small towns and villages, selling directly from carts, building relationships with customers who returned year after year. By 1860, they had saved enough to open a second store, this time in the nearby town of Leeuwarden. The store was modest, but it worked. The Brenninkmeijer name became associated with reliability. If you bought fabric from Clemens and August, it didn't fall apart after one washing. The first major expansion came in 1881, when the brothers' sons, following in their father's footsteps, opened a store in Berlin, Germany. Berlin was a booming industrial city, growing rapidly as Germany unified and industrialized. The market was vastly different from rural Friesland. Customers wanted ready-made clothing, not fabric. Prices needed to be low enough for factory workers, but high enough to signal quality. The Brenninkmeiers adapted. They sourced cheaper materials in bulk, streamlined production, and focused on high turnover. The Berlin store succeeded beyond expectations. By 1890, the family had opened additional stores in other German cities. They had discovered something crucial. Affordable fashion for the working and middle classes was a massive, underserved market. In 1906, the family officially adopted the name CA, derived from the founders' initials, Clemens and August. By then, the business had expanded to over 30 stores across Germany and the Netherlands. But the family remained private. None of the Brenninkmeijers sought public recognition. They lived modestly, avoided debt, and reinvested profits into the business. Ownership was structured to ensure that control stayed within the family. Shares could only be held by direct descendants. If a family member wanted to sell, they had to offer their shares to other family members first, never to outsiders. This rule, established in the early 1900s, has never been broken. The early 20th century tested the family's resilience. World War I devastated European economies. Stores in Germany were damaged or looted. Supply chains collapsed. But the Brenninkmeijers survived by focusing on essentials. They sold basic clothing, work garments, items people needed regardless of economic conditions. When the war ended, they rebuilt quickly, reopening stores and expanding cautiously. By 1925, CA operated over 100 stores across Europe. The family, now in its 3rd generation, had grown to over 50 members, all bound by strict rules. Family meetings were held annually to review the business. Major decisions required unanimous consent. Disputes were settled privately. The press was never involved. Then came the 1930s and the rise of Nazi Germany. The Brenninkmeijers, as Catholics with Dutch roots, were not targeted like Jewish families. But the war years were complicated. CA stores in Germany continued operating under Nazi occupation. Some family members left Europe for safety. Others stayed, managing the business, trying to navigate an impossible situation. After the war, this period became a source of quiet shame within the family. They never spoke publicly about their role during the Nazi era, and few historical records exist about their decisions. What is known is that the family emerged from World War II with their business largely intact, though their reputation in some circles was tarnished. The post-war period marked CA's greatest expansion. Europe was rebuilding. Incomes were rising. People wanted affordable fashion, and CA provided it. The family opened stores across Belgium, France, Switzerland, Austria, and the UK. In 1948, they expanded beyond Europe for the first time, opening stores in Brazil. The Brazilian market was a gamble, but the family saw an opportunity. Brazil's growing middle class wanted European fashion at affordable prices. CA became massively popular. By the 1970s, Brazil was one of CA's most profitable markets, with hundreds of stores and millions of customers. The family's obsession with secrecy intensified during this period. As CA grew into a billion-dollar business, journalists and competitors tried to learn more about the Brenninkmeijers. They found almost nothing. The family didn't list the company on any stock exchange. They didn't publish financial results. They didn't give interviews. When asked, family members would politely decline, citing a preference for privacy. This wasn't eccentricity, it was strategy. The Brenninkmeijers believed that publicity attracted unwanted attention from competitors, regulators, and opportunists. By staying invisible, they could operate without external pressure, make long-term decisions, and avoid the scrutiny that plagued public companies. By the 1980s, CA was one of the largest fashion retailers in Europe, with over 800 stores and annual revenue exceeding $5 billion. But the fashion industry was changing $1 billion. Fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M were emerging, offering trendier designs and faster inventory turnover. CA, with its focus on basics and tradition, struggled to keep up. Sales growth slowed. Some stores closed. Internally, the family debated how to respond. Younger members wanted to modernize, invest in marketing, and hire outside executives. Older members resisted, arguing that CA's strength had always been stability, not trends. The debate revealed a deeper tension. The family had grown to over 200 members by the 1990s. Not all of them worked in the business. Some lived in different countries, had different priorities, and wanted to cash out their shares. But the family's ironclad rule preventing external ownership made that difficult. In the early 2000s, the family restructured ownership to allow some members to exit, while keeping control centralized among active family leaders. It was a painful process, involving lawyers, family mediators, and tense meetings. But the structure held. CA remained entirely family-owned. The 2000s brought new challenges. Fast fashion dominated. Online shopping exploded. CA's traditional model, based on physical stores and basic clothing, looked outdated. Competitors were faster, trendier, cheaper. CA's market share eroded in key markets like Germany and the Netherlands. Some analysts predicted the brand would disappear, but the family adapted slowly. They invested in supply chain modernization, faster production cycles, and e-commerce. They closed underperforming stores and focused on markets where CA still had strong brand loyalty, particularly Brazil, Mexico, and parts of Eastern Europe. By 2010, CA had stabilized, though it was no longer the dominant force it had been in the 1980s. One of the family's most controversial decisions came in 2000 when they exited the UK market entirely, closing all stores. The UK was highly competitive, dominated by Marks Spencer, Next, and Primark. CA had never gained significant traction. The family decided that rather than continue losing money, they would withdraw completely. It was a pragmatic decision, Typical of the Brenninkmeijers. If a market didn't work, they left. No ego, no public justifications, just a quiet exit. Today, CA operates over 1,300 stores in 18 countries, with particularly strong presence in Brazil, Germany, and Mexico. The company generates approximately $7 billion in annual revenue, though exact figures are difficult to verify since the family doesn't publish detailed financials. The Brenninkmeijer family, now in its sixth generation, numbers over 500 members scattered across Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Most family members have little involvement in the business. A small group of family executives, supported by professional managers, runs operations, but the family still meets annually, still requires unanimous approval for major decisions, and still forbids external ownership. What makes the Brenninkmeijers fascinating isn't just their wealth or longevity, it's their systematic commitment to invisibility. In an age of celebrity billionaires, social media, and personal branding, the Brenninkmeijers have rejected it all. They don't appear on Forbes lists because they don't provide financial information. They don't give interviews because they don't see the benefit. They don't pursue flashy acquisitions or headline-making expansions. They simply operate their business, generation after generation, guided by principles established 180 years ago. But secrecy has a cost. The family has faced criticism for lack of transparency, particularly regarding labor practices in overseas factories. Advocacy groups have accused CA of using suppliers with poor working conditions, low wages, and unsafe facilities. The company has responded with sustainability initiatives and third-party audits, but the Brenninkmeijers' refusal to engage publicly makes it difficult to assess their sincerity. Transparency, they seem to believe, is for public companies. Private dynasties don't owe explanations. The family's broader investments extend beyond the CA. Through Anthos Fund Asset Management, a private investment firm controlled by the Brenninkmeijers, the family has diversified into real estate, private equity, and renewable energy. Anthos manages an estimated $10 billion in family assets, making the Brenninkmeijers one of Europe's wealthiest dynasties. Yet even Anthos operates quietly, investing through intermediaries and avoiding public attention. Today, the Brenninkmeijer family faces the same question that haunts every multi-generational dynasty. Can the business survive the next generation? The family has grown enormous. Not all members are capable or interested. Wealth dilutes across hundreds of people. Family bonds weaken. Some members want liquidity. Others want control. The tensions that plagued the family in the 1990s have not disappeared. They've intensified. But the Brenninkmeijers have survived for 180 years by being disciplined, patient, and ruthlessly pragmatic. They've weathered wars, recessions, and market disruptions. They've adapted to fast fashion, e-commerce, and globalization. They've maintained unity across 6 generations. Whether they can maintain it through a 7th remains to be seen. The story of the Brenninkmeijer family is not one of innovation or disruption. It's a story of discipline, secrecy, and long-term thinking. In a business world obsessed with quarterly earnings, viral growth, and founder celebrity, the Brenninkmeijers represent something different. They built slow, they stayed private, they passed wealth across generations without destroying themselves. And they did it all while remaining almost completely invisible. It's a kind of success most billionaires will never understand. And perhaps that's exactly how the Brenninkmeijers want it.